the entire NYU Accra team, and Global Productions, you are most welcome to the preview of the second coming of Samia Nkrumah. All of us here in Accra also warmly welcome all of you joining us online via Facebook and YouTube. My name is Nick. I'll be your MC for tonight. Just a quick one. We have two washrooms here, one to my left in this building and one to my right to the building just behind you. The Labone Dialogue concept presents a priceless platform for community engagement, deep social discourse, and artistic expression within an inclusive and all-embracing space. Tonight's dialogue follows this norm, and being the last for the year, promises to be super special. Without wasting much time and standing in the established protocol, with the fiat of the convener of the Labone Dialogue, Prof. Frankie Edozone, the second coming of Samia Nkrumah. Thank you.
Africa, ilele mama mama. Africa, mama mama. Let us all unite to uphold her and make her great and strong. You have a role to play, I have a role to play. We together can make our dreams come true. Mama Africa, Africa, we together can never be. Mama, mama, Africa. The people together can never be defeated. Mama Africa, we need Africa. Selflessness is all singing. Mama, mama. Selflessness, Africa. Corruption, selflessness.
Is it on our
Not also crying for their comeback?
Then why? They shouldn't have left us.
Every soul shall taste death.
Then they should have completed their mission.
Then what will be our essence then?
Eat, sleep, and procreate.
We are on a mission. We have arrived. Came in peace but worried. Worried because our people are worried. I was summoned by the cries and agonies of your descendants as the continent tears apart. Hopeless and helpless. The center cannot hold. Your mission is uncompleted. Your dream of unity, selfless Africa, and self-reliance is bleak. It is for this reason that I, Reverend Shehu Okomfo Togbe Bulomo II, the supreme spiritual leader of Africa, leader of the God of love, God of the earth, God of the sun, God of the wind, God of lightning, thunder, and rain, have come to you, not for directions, not to consult. This is an emergency call, a call to restore the broken Africa, instill selflessness. This call will distract your sleep and peace. One that needs you on the soil of Africa. It is time, Congress. It is time. Come back. Come back to us.
Come back. Come back. Come back to us. Come back.
Come back. Come back.
Appear.
Come back. Come back. Come back to us.
Appear. Appear. happened to me. I have fulfilled my part of the bargain. Africa, listen. Listen when you hear the sound of the talking drum. Let me quote the words of Kwabena Iyi Akwa. The hide vibrating on the drum declared the message of the stick. The drumstick quivering in the air. Listen. Listen to the mind direct. Great divine. Ochediampo. You are not forgotten. Sons who died in servitude to Mother Africa through the hardship of slavery to the birth of freedom. Here is drink. Our emancipation was the beacon that showed the African brothers the true meaning of freedom to seek their own. Sons, to the great talking drum that honors our heroes, that this day honors our founders. Welcome. Welcome to the rebirth of the remembrance of our founders. Speak! Founders, speak! You are never vanquished. Speak! For your people are willing to listen. Speak! Impossible. Impossible.
What do we do now?
I need to meet the King of Kings.
Osiris.
The battle is tougher than we thought.
It comes with sacrifice.
Not a mere one.
Sacrifice of a soul.
I'm ready to bear the consequences.
The gods of Africa bless you.
God of love. Ayubu, Leza, Viaso, Shango. God of lightning, thunder, and rain. Baba, Oya, Domfe. God of the wind. Salah, Abubakar, Leza. God of the sun. Odudua, Allah, Asasiya, Eto. daughters, Africa, accompanied by the supreme spiritual leaders of the 5 territories of the continent.
Such a powerful delegation.
My Lord, God of gods, Lord of the underworld, the gatekeeper, you who symbolizes death, resurrection, and the cycle of the Nile floods that the Egypt relied on for our Greek fertility, grant me audience.
What do I owe you?
We have fulfilled our part of the bargain. Walk through the path of those whom you have favored. And yet, our founders never heed to our call. Grant me audience, the gatekeeper, Lord of the
And what do you seek?
access to our founders. For our sons and daughters will not forgive us if we do not complete the mission.
Bear in mind the consequence.
I am ready.
Go and dance, go and dance. Go and dance. What's up here? That. There's no time. There's no time. Share. And I know so if you are channel.
Dissect and to better understand what we just witnessed, we have with us a very distinguished gentleman who will take us through that enterprise. And this session, or that session, will be moderated by our own Amati Oko Amati. How is this?
Thank you very much. Indeed, that was a very special something that we just saw. And it's just a fraction of the play that you are going to be seeing, and which is opening on the 2nd of March and will run to the 2nd of April at the National Theatre. So as you said, in order for us to understand what we just saw, I'd like to ask Latif Abubakar, who is the playwright and the producer and the director of this play, to introduce himself.
So I'm Latif Abubakar. Is that enough? Okay, so I'm Latif Abubakar. I'm a playwright, project management author, and trainer. I mean, that's quite brief. I have to my credit 18 full-length play. And we've performed all in the space of 10 years in Ghana and then across some African countries. I think that's a gist of who Latif is for now.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And what is so amazing is that these days, especially after COVID, there hasn't been many plays around. And so to see this play, which is going to have about more than 100 people on stage, dancers and actors, we are really looking forward to it. Maybe you want to tell us a bit about Global Productions, your production company.
Okay, so we at Globe are into theater, but focus more on theater for development. So we write plays that seek to educate people about social and health issues affecting us. We have done plays on HIV/AIDS, plays on child trafficking, plays on illegal mining, known as Galamsey. We've done plays on first aid. And we were the first to put up a play on COVID-19 in the world. On the 30th of April, at the thick of the pandemic in 2020. It had 3.5 million views across the globe. We did this obviously in partnership with the government of Ghana, the Ministry of Information, and then the Ministry of Health. It was live, virtual, too as well. So our major objective is educate people, entertain people, empower them through theater. We believe in theater for change, and our core mandate is to churn out plays that will drive social and behavioral change in our country.
But you're also known for very innovative theater. Maybe you want to talk about that a bit?
Yes. So theater in Ghana is not very much alive. We always say the audience psyche to theater in Ghana is very low. So we need to do extra more to get people come to the theaters or get people watch theater performances. And what we try to do is bring innovation into the theater space. For instance, we did the first commercial open air theater in Ghana that brought together about 12,000 people to watch a play titled Something Must Kill a Man at the beach. So it was great. We also introduced what we refer to as theater on the cruise. That is theater production in the middle of the Volta Lake. So we do performances every 7th and 8th of January in the middle of the Volta Lake. And so for people who want to have an amazing experience of theater, I mean, you could achieve that in the middle of the Volta Lake. And I mean, that should tell you what we do when it comes to innovation too as well.
Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Her Excellency Samia Nkrumah, who, no excellency, once an excellence, always an excellency. Anyway, yes. In fact, you walked in just as we were going to talk about your father. Yeah. You wanted to tell us why Nkrumah? Why the second coming of Nkrumah?
So to talk about why Nkrumah, I just need to give you, I always explain this with an aspect of the play that talks about why Nkrumah. So what you saw is just a 15 minutes excerpts of a 2-hour production. A 2-hour production that will have about 100 plus actors and actresses on stage. The good news is that for us, we are a bit gender biased in terms of feminine gender bias, so we have about 65% of our cast being female. So what happens is that in this production, the entire play begins with the cries of people from the African continent, from the various, we've divided Africa into 5. That's the 5 territories: the southern, the western, the central, the northern, and then the western. So you have cries of people from the various territories of Africa, calling for the souls of our founders to come back to help restore Africa, broken Africa, and then help restore us in terms of economic emancipation. So in this 5 group of people are being led by the various gods on the African continent: the god of the earth, the god of the sun, the god of the wind, and so on and so forth. Then we have the supreme spiritual leader of Africa. That's Wolome, Reverend Sheikh Shehu Ni Wolome Togbe II. She has all the names. We talk about unity, so they are all one. And she represents Africa in terms of spirituality. She comes to call the souls, and this woman is so spiritual to the extent that anytime she calls any soul from the underworld, the soul appears. That is a fact. So she comes with her 5 gods to invite the souls of our founders to come back to Africa to help us achieve economic emancipation and our dreams, and the dreams they wanted to achieve when they were here. When we talk about the founders of Africa, we are talking about people like Patrice Lumumba, we are talking about Kwame Nkrumah, Haile Selassie, Nyerere, and so on and so forth. And so she does the first incantation, nobody responds. She goes through the second one with a talking drum, using a different technique. None of the founders' souls responded. Then the third one, she failed. So she decided to go see the King of Kings. The King of Kings here is referred to as Osiris. Osiris is the god of the underworld through Egyptian mythology. When you hear Osiris, is the god of the underworld, the god of the resurrection and the god of the dead. So anytime you want to have a conversation with someone in the underworld, you need to go through the gatekeeper, which is Osiris. So she decided to go to Osiris, and then to seek permission to go to the underworld to know exactly why our founders are not responding to her call, because she has never failed in calling any soul onto the earth. So went through another massive incantation. Before she goes to the underworld, there's a huge choreographical dance that takes her to the underworld. She meets Osiris, and because she's upset a bit because the founders didn't respond to it, immediately she got to the underworld, she wanted to talk. Osiris shut her up and said, listen. So she turned, we watched the founders. Apparently they were having heated arguments among themselves. So there's a whole argument in the underworld. I want you, whilst I'm speaking, I want you to be imagining how the underworld will be created on stage. Marvelous. That, yes, definitely. There will be times we'll show you excerpts of the set designs and stuff, how the underworld was created. So then she heard Patrice Lumumba, Nelson Mandela, Nkrumah, Haile Selassie arguing, talking about the fact that who is supposed to go and represent them on earth. Nkrumah says he is not coming because the people of Africa are ungrateful. When he comes and then does whatever, these same people will go after him. That is how he left. So he's not coming. Then he asked Haile Selassie. So at this point of the play, it's where our audience would get to understand who these characters really are. So before Nkrumah talks about why it should be Haile Selassie or it should be Patrice Lumumba, he tells us who that character is and what was his purpose on earth. So people say, so Patrice Lumumba, you were a major, you helped liberated so and so and da 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 da. Heated argument. Finally, Haile Selassie said that it has to be Nkrumah, and he has 2 reasons why. He has to be Nkrumah because Nkrumah was the founding father, was one of the main founding fathers of Pan-Africanism. 2, it has to be Nkrumah. It has to be Nkrumah because Nkrumah was also one of the main founding fathers of OAU, now African Union. Then Mandela chips in and says, yes, 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 it has to be Nkrumah. Nkrumah must represent us on earth. Why? But Nkrumah just reacted, Mandela, why? Why me? And then Mandela goes like, as recent as 2000, when Mandela was on earth, and he was one of the most popular, renowned personalities on the African continent, Nobel Peace Prize winner, and so on and so forth. Everybody knew Mandela as at 2000. The BBC did a poll, the African Man of the Millennium poll. Nkrumah was 40 years gone, not alive, but Nkrumah won with a vast majority when it comes to the BBC poll. It tells them that the people will listen to Nkrumah more. So it has to be Nkrumah who must come back to F to represent our founders. You understand? So that is when the entire founding fathers of Africa, including some of the renowned freedom fighters like Marcus Garvey, Martin Luther King, Padmore, and so on and so forth, began to chant that it has to be Nkrumah. Then Osiris gave an order, Nkrumah, it's time. The way Nkrumah will be revealed on earth is something magical. Trust me. And that is the reason why it is the second coming of Nkrumah. It was not by choice, but it was by deliberation and a good reason from the founding fathers of Africa and the freedom fighters of Pan-Africanism. Chose Nkrumah to come and represent them on earth.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. You are such a great storyteller, and thank you. Thank you. I think one of the big themes of this play is about selflessness, right?
Yep.
But before you talk about selflessness, I'd like to hear something from Samia. Samia, maybe do you want to introduce yourself? I'm sure everybody knows you, but maybe you want to introduce yourself and say who you are.
I'm Samia. Hello. Good evening, everyone. Okay, so I'm Samia Yaba Nkrumah, and as you heard, I'm the daughter of the great Pan-Africanist Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah, and as some of you know, Kwame Nkrumah married an Egyptian. So by the incidence of my birth, I am a Pan-Africanist. But also, I read our father's books and writings, and I believe I became a Pan-Africanist by conviction too, not just by birth. So I think that sums up who I am and why I'm here. I support any endeavor, any initiative that would shed light on the writings of Kwame Nkrumah, his thoughts. We are lucky that he's one of the leaders who documented everything he thought, everything he said, everything he worked for. So he was a thinker, philosopher, writer, organizer, politician, and what have you. So I believe one of the reasons we still talk about, remember him, in addition to his achievements, even nationally here in his base, Ghana, but also it's because he documented everything himself in his 14 plus books and several other pamphlets.
Thank you very much. We've read about Nkrumah, we've heard about Nkrumah, and when you hear about him, it's almost like he's so far away. It's like a god. He's kind of untouchable. And so before he goes into his selflessness, I'm just wondering, how is he as a father?
Okay, that's a difficult one. I'm asked this question all the time, and I can understand why. Unfortunately, the last time I saw him, I was a few months short of my 6th birthday. That is the day of the overthrow of his government in 1966. But we spoke over the phone, we corresponded. And of course, I have very vivid memories of him because he was an ordinary African father. And what do I mean by this? That he would come back from work, he would be reading or writing or eating, and we, his children, there were 3 of us at home at the time. Our senior brother is a bit older than us. He was working by then. But he would be sitting and we'd be running around him, playing, making noise, and he wouldn't even say, shh, be quiet. Or, no, he would just allow us to be there. So we grew up with him around whenever he was in the country. He was an ordinary father, close to us, playing with us sometimes, but mostly letting us run around him without him feeling, disturbed or anything. He always had a paper and a pen. In fact, I remember him telling our mother, if you want to remember anything, just write it down. So it became a habit in the house. So many notebooks, and all of us grew up with that advice. If you want to remember something, just write it down. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So now let's go to selflessness. And I don't know whether we will call it selflessness, but we remember Nkrumah to be the kind of person who have always put somebody else first. The artist came first. Therefore, during his time, we had fantastic theater, we had fantastic music, we had fantastic architecture, So tell me why you call him selfless.
So for me, this play addresses three major issues. We call it the big goals. One is promoting social and behavioral change through selflessness. Selflessness because we believe that selflessness is the root cause of all our problems in Africa. So we've been talking about a lot of things, why corruption, why ABCD. All the researches I have done, for the past 3 years for this particular play, points to one fact, that selflessness is our root cause. If our leaders are not selfish, there will not be corruption. If we are also not selfish, we won't jump into that same shoes and be corrupt. If people are selfless, they will be patriotic. You link everything that is going wrong, and it is because people are selfish. That's it. So we believe that we're going to use this play to illustrate some selfless actions and attitude of our founding fathers that they actually wanted to live for us to portray and live for Mother Africa to go well. So it's one of the main objectives we are driving through this play. How selfless we can be is one of the things that this play will drive. The second big goal talks about we achieving the SDGs. So the play would help us attain 3 of the SDGs. SDG 1, that talks about poverty. SDG 5, that also talks about gender equality. And then the SDG 17, that talks about partnership. So the partnership leads us to the final big goal, which is to promote the biggest cultural exchange program among Africa and the UK, Africa and the European Union, and then Africa and the United States of America. This will be the biggest cultural exchange program for
That's fantastic. So, Samia, you're a Pan-Africanist, and I don't want to say you're a Pan-Africanist like your father, because I'm sure everybody will say like my father. You're a Pan-Africanist yourself, and you heard what he said. What is your reaction to that?
Yeah, as I said, I commend every initiative that will help shed light on why we as Africans must unite, which was really one of the core, at the core of the vision. Let me put it this way, at the core of Kwame Nkrumah's vision and thoughts. So anything in that direction, anything that would enlighten us, whether it's a poem, a book, a play, a movie, a film, whatever initiative that we can take to shed light on that aspect of our, let's say, of our struggle. Because Pan-Africanism really, or African unity, it's our redemption song. I mean, every few centuries, you have certain challenges. I mean, races, countries, nations. For African people, one of our challenges is perhaps underdevelopment, it's economic marginalization. You know, it's our recent history has been tough, from military defeat, slavery, colonialism, and now really new colonialism, that we are not still mistresses and masters of our economies. And that is making us suffer in different ways. So one of the solutions that was put forward immediately after our independence. I mean, Pan-Africanism, by the way, started way before that. In the struggle in the United States and in the diaspora, the struggle of African people against discrimination, against systemic racism. But it arrived on African soil with the return to Africa of prospective leaders like our father. And it really became, it stood out as the most important thing that we can do since we gained independence is to unify our forces, integrate our economies, work together, plan together, think together as African people so that we can raise the standard of living of most of us, of the average African. So it's our redemption song. It's the one thing we have still not achieved, the one thing that could solve many of our problems. And yes, I think we must talk about it. We must debate it. We must, we must have it in our schools, in our universities, in our cultural space. We must introduce that dimension to our struggle. Because as some of our leaders and prophets and intellectuals have said, it is born out of our struggle. It's born by Africans, and it is something we must look at deeply and start pushing forward with urgency, not in a relaxed, calm way, like waiting for decades for it to happen, as we've been doing, conference after conference, ideas piecemeal here, there. We think of, some trade agreements here and there, trying to, no, we need to address the question of unity with vigor, with zeal, with passion, with everything we've got, because it is the one thing we have shied away from, and it's the one thing that could change the future for Africa and Africans for generations to come.
Thank you. This whole thing about bringing Africa and the diaspora together is a fascinating concept, because in a sense, there's Africanisms in all these different places, and when we actually look, we don't have to look very hard to see what happens in Brazil is something that is happening in Nigeria, has roots in Nigeria, things happening in Jamaica has roots in Ghana. And I think different governments have tried actually to do this. Here in Ghana, we have the year of return, and then the year of, again, the re-return, or whatever it is we have. But what perplexes me, though, is this, that how are we going to achieve this if, even in the schools, we don't talk about the diaspora, we don't talk about our similarities, we don't talk about our differences. And not only here, but also out there in the diaspora, I'm not sure how they see Africa. So how are you thinking of doing what you said you want to do?
So specifically with regards to the exchange programs, what we're trying to do is for people in the diaspora to understand our culture, and not just understand, but to be part of our culture and learn about it. So for instance, this play has about 100 to 120 actors and actresses, including the dancers and drummers, performing. And we would have 50 to 60 of these dancers, drummers, and actors those roles being played by other counterparts of ours in the diaspora. So if we are going to the UK, we want to partner with an institution like the Royal Academy of Arts or a university there, and they would learn the African Ghanaian dances and drumming. So there'll be some kind of tutorials teaching them. So if we are going to perform there, they play a role in the play by performing these particular arts. You understand? So we live there not just showcasing, but also impacting people and helping people learn how we do our things in terms of our culture and so on and so forth. And that is what we're going to be doing all over. Whichever country we're going, even when we're going to Nigeria, we're doing same. When we're going to South Africa, we are doing same. We just want to promote that kind of unity, togetherness, and the fact that we can all play a role in one similar space, one way or the other. And it's doable because we've done it before as Globe Productions. We've done some performances outside Ghana. And what we do is that certain roles will be performed by people in the countries that we are going to, just to bring togetherness and help them also understand the play better, one way or the other. And that's what we're trying to do. We don't, the play has characters like the Queen, because Nkrumah came into contact with the Queen. He has characters like Gordon Gadgesbeck. He has characters like Adin Clark, Sir Adin Clark, and so on and so forth. These roles are being played by white people, white British. That is exactly what we are trying to say. It's so, as much as it's African, it's actually going to be African in the diaspora who are going to perform this play to the world across the globe.
Yeah. That's interesting. One thing that really interests me is when you look at the music and the dance, and you are talking about touring, and you are saying that when you tour, some of these people will be doing some of the Ghanaian dances and stuff. And I'm just wondering whether you've thought about the fact that perhaps in these countries, they have taken the ancient dances that they've taken with them, and it has developed into something else. And perhaps it might be quite interesting to, in your play, to see how they have taken these dances and developed it, rather than having them do the Ghanaian dances, but for them to do what they perceive or how they have built on the Ghanaian dances. Have you thought about that?
Yes, we've thought about that. But, okay, so it's not just about Ghanaian dances. Whatever dances we are doing here, it's an African dance. So the play displays all the dances in every sector of Africa. That's why we've divided Africa into 5 territories. So it's not limited to just Ghana. And again, it's knowledge transfer. As much as they have learned some kind of Asian dances, it will be good for them to also learn some kind of African dances. The stage here is too small to display what we have to display on the national level. So, for instance, the Zulus have their dance. I mean, you move to the Kenya, you move to other countries. Each of them, I mean, the northern part of Africa have their dances. All these dances will be incorporated in this. We have what we call the grand coexistent dance in the play, which is a dance of all popular African dances happening at one stage in the play. So as much as they have their dances, I'm sure they would love to learn new things. They would love to learn dances from the African continent and adapt it to us well. As much as we also would love to learn certain dances from them, from the diaspora. That is the beauty of exchange program, and that is actually what we want to project.
Do you already know what countries you're going to be touring?
We have a picture of countries we're looking at because of our relationship when I talk about relationship, Globe Productions and our partners, BTL Africa, have a relationship across the African continent. So we have relationship and partners in Nigeria. We have partners in South Africa, in Kenya too as well. Fortunately, we began some partnership in the UK. Thank God the High Commissioner is here. So we can speak towards it. We met with the British Chamber of Commerce just before COVID. We started this process in 2020. So in January 2020, when UK, we met the British Chamber of Commerce, they wanted to link us up, and then COVID came up. So everything went back to, square zero. Now we want to reinitiate those conversations. We have some partners in the US too as well. Fortunately, we have the New York University, and I'm sure they will help us. There will be our drive towards that aspect too. And yes, so with the African continent, we are very solid. We've done some works in the US, at the UN level. So we've done a couple of work at the United Nations in the US. We would ride on those relationships. We have the New York University, and then I'm sure the US Embassy is also willing to be part of this particular process. So Africa is sorted. The globe is gradually sorted. The Spanish, we have also a very good relationship with the Spanish Embassy, who are looking forward to this production in Spain too as well. So that we've had those conversations. The Canadian High Commission, we've started conversations with them too as well. They are interested. I think this is a novelty. Like I said, it's the biggest ever theatrical venture on the African continent.
Oh my God.
It's never happened. So, if you look at the components of what makes a theater venture huge and big, we tick all the boxes.
This conversation is getting very interesting, and I don't really know how much more time we have. Maybe somebody could tell us so that.
Yeah, I think we have some time.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Samia, I'm wondering about your father's writings. I know that he wrote a lot about the revolution in Africa. He wrote a lot about Pan-Africanism. What else did he write? Do I have a feeling that he was a poet as well? No, eh?
I don't think so, no. I'm sure if he had more time, he would have also written poetry, but no, unfortunately not. But he basically, he wrote, whatever he wrote coincided with a particular development, significant development in Africa. So, for example, one of his most famous work, Africa Must Unite, the book he wrote, where it's really a blueprint for why and how we must unite. So that was written and published and distributed to the leaders who met in Addis Ababa in 1963 on the eve of the founding of the Organization of African Unity, which is today the African Union. So it coincided with that. He wrote Challenge of the Congo immediately after the Patrice Lumumba was killed, and he chronicled the root, the origin of the problem there, and everything, analyzed it basically. So whenever something happened of great significance in Africa or in Ghana, he would write about it. So I remember his literary executrix told me once that he was a maker and writer of history. So he made sure that he always documented everything, his analysis of it, and the way forward as he saw it. Yes, there's a whole list of the books he wrote, and it is my wish and desire that the younger generation become a bit more familiar with his writings.
Well, that brings me to the question I asked you before about how we are going to actually do this, bring understanding of the diaspora when we don't even talk about it in the schools. But you have this wonderful play, and I wonder, are you going to be doing stuff in the schools? Are you going to be working with children? What are you going to be doing in the schools with it?
So we have two things to do when it comes to children with regards to this particular play. One, the script will be published, and then that will definitely get to children, because one of the major objectives is to have some reorientation of the youth, and then because the youth are a bit malleable, you can easily mold them. So we have the first aspect is to publish the book and then to circulate it. The second thing is that we're working with our partners to give 300 slots per show for children for free. So that is what we are trying. We have 30 performances between 2nd March to 2nd April. 30 performances. So each of the 30 performances will have 300 slots for children. That is our contribution towards the beginning of reorientation of our children in our country. And that would also be repeated across the globe. Wherever this performance will be showcased, there will be free slots for children to participate in this historic event.
So then at the end of this play, what do you hope to have actually achieved, yes?
Our big goals, the 3 big goals.
Yes.
So one, we need to, the 3 big goals talks about promoting social and behavioral change. And that is why we are including the children, because they can easily be molded one way or the other. And the agenda we are pushing is selflessness. That is the agenda. So, we hope to achieve that. 2, we will hope to be able to achieve some aspects of the Sustainable Development Goals. That is why we are tackling SDG 1, SDG 5, and SDG 17. 1 talks about poverty. And if the entire production of the play would have not less than 600 people performing, and it's going to run for a year. Yes. And this concept is not a 1-year concept, it's an annual concept. So if it's going to create employment for over 600 people and it's going to be annual, guess what we are doing? And then this would help resurrect automatically the theater and arts industry in our country, because it's not just going to be the performance, there's going to be massive expression. So we are tackling the SDGs as much as possible. That is why the United Nations and UNESCO are part of this particular project that we are embarking on.
In fact, I was hoping for a more practical response, which you actually gave as well, that perhaps this would also revive the whole thing about the creative industry.
Oh, yes.
In Ghana, hopefully.
The kind of play we are putting up and the promotion associated to this play, starting from the 21st of December, would definitely give some kind of image and some kind of, will change the perception of the arts and the theater industry in Ghana. Definitely. The characters involved, and mind you, it's not just also about Ghanaian actors. It's also about Nigerian actors and some African actors. You see some huge popular African actors in the play. This is a strategy to help whip interest when it comes to theater and its auxiliary projects around it.
So you are talking about collaborations as well.
Oh, yes.
Between the diaspora and Ghana. When
massive collaboration. I just don't want to rush in giving names now, but from the 20th of December, I'm sure we'll put up the names of the various actors in this particular play. We say it is the biggest, not just because of Nkrumah, but also because of our founding fathers in the play. So the founding fathers of AU are part of the play. And then our major, biggest Pan-African freedom fighters in the world are all found in the play. So this is the play that will help you understand who Marcus Garvey is, will help you understand who Martin Luther King is, will help you understand Du Bois, Padmore, who will throw lights on this part. And very interesting manner, in an interesting manner. So when we begin serializing the characters in the play, it tells you a kind of production we are talking about. And we're trying to give a picture where people would actually see a character and feel that, yes, I have seen Nkrumah for the first time. Yeah. I mean, we had a view of Nkrumah, I mean, in the synopsis we are doing. So these characters will look like, they will be a look-alike of who those people were, and then perform exactly like them.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, I was hoping that this could be more interactive, and that the audience would also like to ask some questions to whilst Samia and Latif is here. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm at the back. I have a question for Samia, really. I really enjoyed what you said about writing things down, which sounds like a simple thing, but it's just always a great reminder, and about documentation. And I wondered, oh, I'm here. Do you want to, yeah, I'm here. Oh, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I'm at the back. Oh, I should stand up. Okay, sorry. Yeah, oh, sorry. I just dropped my notebook. Yeah, so I just had a question about, this is quite a specific question. I have only read a little of the writings of your father, and I wondered, for children, which is looping back to what they were just speaking about before, but for children, do you think that for a younger generation, do you think there's a specific writing we should point to? But I teach at university and I work with kids and stuff, so I'm just interested. It's quite a specific question, but is there something that you think the younger generation would be, I guess, more relevant right now? Because there's so much writing and documentation. I wondered if you could speak to that.
Okay. So is there something that would be relevant right now from our father's writing? Yeah. I think most of it is very, very relevant. And it's written, it's not difficult to understand. It's straightforward and quite clear. But yes, I always recommend a book like Africa Must Unite, because it's clear, simple, concise, and everyone can read it. Even I believe someone who's at school, even from the age of 14, 15 upwards. And it's amazing how the core message resonates with younger people even more than with people our age. Because we are talking about something that we wanted to do, we should have done, and we could do, but we didn't do. And it's up to the younger generation to pick it up and run with it. So it's really the future. Sometimes I tell younger people when we are having discussions, and I say, people like Nkrumah are for the future. They're not for the past. Even though they were born decades ago, I think now Kwame Nkrumah would, if he was here, he would be like 113 or something. But actually what they were talking about are things that we must address now. That's the timelessness of the vision. And if you take something like, let us just think today of the African free trade, the African Continental Free Trade Area or agreements. Now, this is something that we talked about the leaders, our African leaders sat and talked about that in the early 60s. And they actually put a blueprint spearheaded by Ghana under Kwame Nkrumah, and they put a very clear blueprint. It's taken us decades to go back to the same things we had agreed to do. So this is our future, understanding why we must work together as Africans, understanding that as individual countries, we will find it very difficult to solve our economic problems. Understanding that and taking the first step to try and harmonize our development ideas and policies, our policies, this is something left for you, for the younger generation to do. So, yes, school children must read it, even before older ones, you know. I think I highly recommend Nkrumah's writing for school children. And as I said before, you can like or dislike Kwame Nkrumah, but you must be, as an African, you owe it to yourself to become acquainted with his thoughts. Then you make up your mind. You don't have to agree with everything he's written, because, as we are saying, he wrote decades ago. You don't have to agree with everything. Some things you might think are not so relevant, but I bet you the core, the essence, the message is timeless, and it's for now. Not yesterday, not tomorrow really, but mostly now. So let's do something about trying to familiarize ourselves with his writings.
What you are saying is also very relevant in the creative industry, because during Nkrumah's time, he was the person who is taking Ghanaian artists wherever he travels.
Absolutely.
Getting them to be known in the different parts of the world and stuff. The drama groups, the music groups, visual artists are everywhere. Paintings are in the embassies all over the world. Now, I belong to a group called the Arterial Network. We started about the early 2000s, okay? And what your father was talking about is exactly what we're talking about years and years later, right? And we're talking about how First we start with African artists would come together to do things, to collaborate, to actually see themselves in each other and all that. Then we started talking about the diaspora and all that. These are all things that this man has been talking about for ages. And, well, I don't know whether anybody actually listened, or sadly, when he died, these thoughts also died with him. You know, and it's rather unfortunate, because if we were to follow through. Now, I don't even know whether you can get his books in the bookstores. Can you?
Yeah, that's another thing that we have to do. Yes, some, but definitely not enough. That's something that collectively we have to address. Absolutely. Yeah, we need more, not just in Ghana, in the whole of Africa, in the whole world, really. This is for humanity. Africa's upliftment is for the good of the whole of the world, you know, humanity generally, yes. So,
but as a politician, do you know whether the AU, the African Union, is his baby, whether they also talk about these things, whether they're actually doing something about some of the things that he wrote about, that he cared about?
Yeah, I mean, almost there are many charters. The AU charters are plenty. I can't remember how many they are, but almost every charter is born out of the founding fathers' thoughts. So it's all there on paper. It's there. It's there for us, but it's up to us to make the effort and practice it. I mean, what is missing really is creating that environment that will help us translate that into policies domestically, nationally in our different countries, and also on a continental level. I mean, we always talk about that political will, but really it's that our collective will. Are we ready? And we will only be ready if we understand more and more. So I think we need to study a bit, we need to enlighten ourselves a bit, and that will give us the passion and the courage to move forward and do what we know we have to know. Like I said, this is our redemption song, and we have to sing it, walk as we are walking, sleeping, eating, we have to sing it.
Well, finally, that brings us again to your whole idea of selflessness. And can you give us examples in the play where you actually would talk about the selflessness of this man?
So there was a part in the play. So I had this scoop from Honorable Samia Nkrumah, and I put it in the play. There was a part of the play that Nkrumah was once home after he became president. He was home, and then he heard knocks on his door. They opened the door, and you had 10 ladies rushed in to his sitting area, and they were angry and nagging and complaining that, Nkrumah, why would you do this to us? Why would you do this? And Nkrumah is like, calm down. What have I done? Says, no, this is not the time to calm down. You shouldn't have done this. Then he managed to get them calm, and then he asked a simple question. Can you please tell me exactly what I have done wrong? You were the people who brought me into power. And these are market women, leaders of market women, very powerful people who mobilize money to fund the campaign of Nkrumah. So apparently, after winning power, they went around the country to raise money to build a house for Kwame Nkrumah. Then, a month after, we saw in the papers that Nkrumah has willed this house to the government of Ghana. So they were angry and when they came to Nkrumah, the question they asked, so now, if you are out of power, where would you stay? And Nkrumah said, the government would look after me. Then again, they asked, if you are not around, where will your family stay? Then he answered, the government will look after them. So these women were like, and the building we are talking about is the Pediasi Lodge. I mean, the Pediasi Lodge. So we could say that it's actually a private property of Nkrumah, but he decided not to have anything for himself, so he willed it to the government of Ghana, and that is what the government of Ghana is using now as one of the presidential lodge. This is a clear example of how selfless Kwame Nkrumah was.
Thank you very much. But we cannot finish talking about Nkrumah without talking about women, because empowerment of women actually, well, would I say it started with Nkrumah? Well, maybe not, but it really started with him. Would you like to talk a bit about that one? Because I know that my mother was one of the ladies who were actually organizing with women during Nkrumah's time, and Nkrumah made it possible, because any government could have just shut it down. But he made it possible, and so many changes for women, so many women went to universities because of this man, because he pushed them into it. Women had voting rights when the West didn't have women sorry, let me go back. When women in Ghana were getting the same pay as the men, women in the West were not getting the same pay as the men, and that was due to the things that Nkrumah has done. Yeah. So, do you want to say something about that?
No, that's right. That is so. But anyway, I believe if you believe in social justice, then that includes many things like equal pay for equal work and that gender equality aspects of it. But you're right that women were very prominent in the independence struggle, even those who were not directly involved, but as you said, they've financed the independence struggle, including the market women. Yes, Latif dramatized the story, but it is so, and I heard it from our mother, and it was corroborated by one of the last surviving women MPs who entered Parliament in 1960 under what we would call today an affirmative action bill or law. So there were no women elected, but the Nkrumah-led government, yes, insisted that no, there has to be representation by women in Parliament. So there were, for every region, each of the 10 regions, a number of women were vetted and voted upon within Parliament, not nationally, but at least 10 women entered Parliament. And if you compare the percentage or the ratio, it is more. That is more than the percentage we have today of women's representation in Parliament. So there was something called the People's Representation Act, women, and so indeed, yes. And one of those MPs, Madame Lucy Anin, is still with us, and she was one of those who also contributed to build Pidwasi Lodge. And so our father was putting some money aside from his salary to build the house with the help of these strong women financiers, if you will. And that is how Pidwasi Lodge, which it wasn't as big as this, it was a much smaller thing. But yes, he did believe very much in women's contribution, the importance of women's contribution to nation building. And in fact, speaking of Pidwasi Lodge, that's my birthplace. I was born in that house. And yes, and mother said when I was born, our father came with this book. He never did that, I mean, before, but this big bouquet of flowers. And she said, but why? You didn't do that, with the first time. And he said, no, because this is a girl. And moreover, in a week's time, that was a week before we became a republic, he said, in a week's time, we are going to have 10 women entering Parliament. Under this affirmative, we are calling it affirmative action bill. But so the interesting thing about Nkrumah is that the personal and the political were interlinked. So there's nothing he did, almost nothing in his personal life that somehow did not affirm or confirm his political beliefs. The same as his Pan-African marriage, arranged marriage with an Egyptian from North Africa to bring the north of Africa closer to the rest of the continent. And the same, of course, with his appreciation of women's potential and contribution. But all this is born out of, if your ideology, your thought, if you believe in equality, you would and justice, you will naturally and instinctively want to promote the rights of women in society and human rights in general. So it's
it's also under him that many daycare centers sprung up.
That's
so
right.
that women can actually go out there and work.
Yeah.
You see. And do you want to say something about you want somebody to ask you a question? Okay. So the playwright wants somebody to ask him a question. Yes.
Do I get to take the lady's privilege? Sorry. Thank you. Yes, I have a question for Latif, actually. It's about your research process and how you approach that for this. And I was also wondering, you mentioned that it sounds like the production has been underway for almost a couple years, and I'm wondering how much time before, I mean, how long was the creation process? What was your creative process and how long that took? Thank you.
Okay, so we for productions like this, we usually have a research team and then consultants. So we have some lecturers from the African Studies Department, University of Ghana, and we have a team of research in our office specifically for this. And we have certain partners across the African continent, a professor from Cape Verde University too as well, and then we have one from Kenya. And so we collate facts from across Africa in putting together this particular play. Even the gods that we talked about here, if you realized, if you noticed, each of the gods represented a territory in Africa. And the names of the gods represented the popular names in the various territories in Africa. So when we talk about Ayubu, Ayubu is from Eastern Africa. It's a very popular name in Eastern Africa. That means patience. When we talk about Loreto, it's a very popular name in Southern Africa. That means love. Then when you talk about Asasiya, it's a very popular name in West Africa. That means God of the earth. Then when you talk about Eto, it's also in Central Africa. So there was effort put in to come up with certain, cultural, traditional, African-oriented facts to use to couch the play. And I think that the team did it so well. We started in 2018 because we wanted to go all out in 2020. So COVID came, and then we had to take a break. And then now we believe we are ready. The entire play is ready, and it will take Africa and the world by storm.
Oh my God. Well, that needs an applause by all means. We wish you all the best, and we know that you are going to take Africa and the diaspora and the globe by storm. We wish
Thank you
that
very
for you.
much.
We wish
Thank you
that
very
for you.
much.
Now, Honorable has to leave, and I see our MC is here to tell us that it's time. But we'll...
No, I'm only here to say, can we please clap for the panel?
Thank you. So she has to leave. So if you have any more questions, just one small question. She has to run yesterday, but maybe she has 1 second to answer. Any question about living with her father?
I'm writing a book anyway, so.
Yeah. Okay. Otherwise, thank you so very much, Samia, for coming. I mean, we know you are very busy. And this has been incredibly interesting. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point,
with your permission.
Site Director, Professor Frankie Edodu.
Thank you so very much. Honorable, thank you so much. Everyone on the live stream, a million thanks for joining us. Auntie Coco, you're amazing. Latif, you're amazing. We've done all protocols observed. There are refreshments for everybody. As many of you know, New York University is a private university in the public service, and so we really, really believe in these kinds of conversations and how we can use our partners to further education. We're very, very pleased that Globe Theatre Productions is a partner with NYU. We do internships with them, and we are going to work with you to make sure that the second coming of Nkrumah is something that is international. Those of you who have the program, please look on the back of it. You will see that this play is going to take us by storm on March 2nd. Tell all your friends, get tickets, let's all go together. Everybody who comes to Labone Dialogues know that we are very much interested in writing, and we always partner with Writers Project Ghana. There's been talk on the stage about lack of books on Nkrumah, but if you contact Writers Project Ghana, we can help you find books, and there are indeed some books on the table. We do want to thank members of our diplomatic community, particularly our friends at the U.S. Embassy, who are always here every single time. So thank you guys so much. Really, really appreciate you. Also, our friends at the British High Commission who were here today. Thank you so much. And Sparkling, which keeps our place so wonderfully clean. Project Know Thyself provided all the water bottles that you guys have. So thank you guys so much for coming. Stay a while. Chat with Auntie Coco, chat with Latif, buy some books, have some refreshments, and we'll look forward to seeing you on February 16th, 2023, where we will have a fantastic Labone Dialogues that deals with crime, fiction, writing, novels. So thank you guys so very much.